Let's talk about goals and objectives at trade shows. I think those are really big, right? They sort of dictate direction. And if you don't have them, I think companies are just lost, right? Give me an idea as to examples of goals that you set, examples of objectives, the way you come to deciding upon them. Any good information on that you can give?
Okay, so this is seriously a process that's evolving. I really struggled when I first came in because there were no goals for the trade shows. So the first year, I would take all the information from our debriefs and start thinking about how do we make things better for next year. So when year two came around, what I did was I took all those suggestions for improvements and I turned those into goals. The problem with that, though, is that they weren't really measurable other than did we achieve it or did we not achieve it? What I'm hoping to move into is going, okay, sales leaders, I need y'all to say, how many meetings do y'all want to set at these events? How many, booth visitors do we want to try to draw in? How can we get more ROI out of this? How much more can we measure that's going to be meaningful to the business and really say that this has been a good show for us to be at?
Yeah. Did they know how many meetings that they could set, should set, ones they did in the past? Because I've had conversations with our clients where we throw a question out saying like, how many demos do you want to run at this show? And they're like 400. And I said, tell me how you've gotten to that number. And they're like, well, and then I'm like, okay, let's talk seriously. How many did you do in years past? They're like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But we need to actually set a number that we understand is feasible based on attendance, feasible based on how many quality demos you would give. If you give 100, how many are quality, right? How many do you sell? It's the same thing. You just have to have that information. So how was that process with you dealing with them and asking like, hey, how many meetings? What are you used to? How did you navigate that?
Well, like I said, it's still a work in progress because I think they've been at it for so long that they don't think
Yeah.
that way anymore, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm trying
Yep.
to gently push them back in that direction. I know that the chief client officer, for example, wants his team to set at least 6 meetings a day. So that's a
That's
good
good.
place to start. So if they've only got 1 or 2 meetings, should they really be going to the show? I don't think
Mhm.
so. So I'm really exploring more of the ROI. What can we get out of it? And also,
Yeah.
big challenge too is getting data out of Salesforce. The data you get
Mm.
out of Salesforce is only as good as the data that's put into it. And you've got seasoned salespeople who are sitting there going, do they want me selling or they want me putting data into Salesforce? Well, yeah, they want you to do both, you know? So
That's your
that's
job. Yeah. That's your
exactly.
job. Salespeople are a different, I'm telling you, I love my salespeople, but they're a different kind of breed. I'll tell you what.
They're extremely good at what they do, but getting
Oh,
that
of course. Yeah.
information back out of them is tough.
Mhm.
And on top of it, where I would love to see how many touch points it takes to get that buyer along that buyer journey until the point that
Mhm.
they actually say, I'm ready to buy. We also know that it's a long buying process, it can take 2 to 3 years, if not longer. So I don't know how they're extracting that data from Salesforce because I'm not a user of it, but I at least want to make sure that, and this is a goal for next year, is tagging those campaigns in Salesforce so that we can know when we touch those people.
Yeah. That's something I was going to ask you about is inside there, the information that's going in. How much personalization are you putting to it? Right. Because I always think that events are a very unique sales and marketing strategy. They differ, I think, from a lot of other sales and marketing strategies. And too often people are like, how many net new leads? How many people are in the pipeline? How much did we sell? That's great. And you absolutely bare bones should be having that information. But at an event, the interpersonal relationship connections, the conversations, you're getting new customers, you're getting current customers, you're getting people in your pipeline. It's this everlasting kind of relationship building face to face. It can do a lot of things. So tracking that in a CRM can sometimes be imperfect and very difficult. But I've always been a firm believer that the better the notes, the better the information at a trade show, the better you track it, the more at the end of the day, events are going to be able to come back and say, hey, we're not going to 100% take credit for this, but we can tell you that we are finding a pattern that when we have a touch point with a customer at an event or a prospect or a person in the pipeline, we are accelerating deals, they're closing at a better rate, and customers are spending more. That is something I feel like companies exhibiting should be trying to do. So what does the information look like that's going in to Salesforce from your side?
I have to be honest, I don't see it.
Okay.
We get two different audiences at a show. We get the people that we're selling to. Actually, we get
Hmm.
three. We get the people that we're trying to sell to buy our services. Then we get adjusters who want to work for us. And then we have
Yep.
vendors who want to do business with us, who want us
Yeah.
to call on them when there's a catastrophe and we need somebody to restore something.
Yep.
And so the vendor and the adjusters, while I need to take in that information, that's not why we're at the show. We're at the
Of
show
course.
so that we can meet with prospective prospects and
Yeah.
current clients. So a lot of that stuff I'm honestly not seeing. And that's part of a challenge with my reporting is I know that
Yeah.
our leadership team's getting information from several different sources. So I'm struggling with how do I report back to the leadership team on an event, especially the smaller
Yeah.
ones, when I think they're already getting that information elsewhere. So
Yeah, I would imagine that that could be a good conversation for you and stakeholders, essentially saying, hey, like this is what I would need to be able to then produce this and give this to you. And that's probably a good conversation, to have.
well, one of the things on my post-show debrief form, I've got a set of questions that I do, and then I also have tabs on there for the attendee list, if we get it, and any meetings that we've had. And it's just high level. Just tell me who you met with, what the company was, who from our company was involved, and what was the high level subject matter that y'all were discussing. And then that's part of that tombstone for the future when I come back next year and look at it. And so some of that we can track, but the salespeople don't always give me that information, even though I ask.
Tell me about that debrief form. What does that debrief form look like?
The debriefing form, though, I usually only use for events where we're exhibiting with a 10 by 10 or larger. So I'm only doing those about 14, to 16 times a year. But that form, I'm actually going to add a new component to it next year. And it's actually going to be the pre-show. Why? Why are we going to this show? And that needs to be the key stakeholder, the event owner, to tell
Mhm.
me what's the importance of it so that we can
Mhm.
continue to evaluate the value of being at it. But when I get everybody on the phone after the event, I'm involving everybody who was there. I do the basics, what was the name of the show, who was a key stakeholder, who attended, what was on our graphics, what kind of literature did we send, what kind of
Yeah.
giveaways do we do? And then I start getting into, okay, what did we do well? What could we have done better? What suggestions for improvement you have? Should we do this again next year? How many people do you think visited the booth? And then, did you meet with the people you wanted to meet with? Or were some of them just kind of like little snipes and you couldn't catch up with them? And then put some measurement to it. We're trying to measure it.
That's excellent. You mentioned when we spoke earlier, you were saying you found an unlock in creating service projects in your booth. Can you tell me more about that?
It's so hard to get people engaged on the show floor since their attention span's incredibly short. And my husband's a professional speaker on the collegiate circuit. And so one of the things that he focuses on is getting students to do community service. And we have what we call drive-by service projects. And really it's stuff that's real simple that doesn't take long to do. And so one of the example that we did at our show in the spring was positivity pegs. And we changed the name actually to affirmation pegs. And we would have people who came into the booth to write an I am statement, like I am brave, I am fearless, I am smart, I'm a good friend. And then we take those and we give them to an at-risk elementary school here in Atlanta. And so we were trying just to kind of get people to stop in and not only give back to the community, but to spend a little more time in the booth, and maybe we could have a conversation with them from there. Giving back to the community is one of our company's core values. And I wanted
Mhm.
to figure out a way, how do we bring that into the booth and have other people participate?
I think that's a really smart way of creating engagement, right? Because that's what you need. You need engagement. You need dwell time from people. You need them to stop and to stay and to discuss, and then also being able to give back all in the same breath, right? I mean, I think that's a really smart way of doing it.